A new perspective. I remember the day that I received my first perspective. It was given to me by my son's therapist. If you follow any of my material, you will eventually run into the story, and you will run into it many times. My name is Anna Imagination because of this story, because of this woman. Imagination was the thing that broke through my darkness and woke me up. Imagination is perspective. Imagination is the first step in cultivating a new perspective. And I named myself Imagination to remind myself every day that it begins with imagination. I needed that daily reminder. I need that daily reminder that with imagination, I have the power to do anything, to start anything, to complete anything. If you can imagine it, you can do it. Imagination is built off of what we love, what we want, and that becomes what we dream. And that is imagination. It is literally what we want and what we love. That is my name. Anna, want and love. Anna, dream. Anna, imagination. After you see this dream, a new feeling bursts to life called desire. You want it. As soon as you want it, it becomes a goal. Now, that is a 3-step process. Imagination, dream, desire, goal. This is the birth of a new perspective. Now, at any particular moment that this happens, any particular moment, you can have a belief pop into your head that says, you can't have that. It could also say, that's not possible. It could also say, no, that's pretty much it. Either you can't or it's not possible. Those are limiting beliefs put there by a third-party person who told you you can't have it, who told you that that's impossible. A lot of people start arguing that, well, I haven't succeeded in the past. Well, that's a lack of self-doubt, or that's complete self-doubt. And in point of fact, you have never tried, so you actually don't know that. And then there's the argument, well, my parents said. And sometimes you can trace it back to the voice of your ex-partner or a friend or a parent. At the end of the day, you don't believe you can because you still think you are a baby elephant tied to a tree, because you do not believe you have grown and you don't believe you can learn. That's garbage. Everyone grows, everyone learns. But you're stuck in a perspective that's a trap. And in that current story, current perspective, you can't. It's not possible. So when you have imagination and this dream bursts forward and the desire and then the goal come into you, it's going to be this, what you love versus what you fear. And what you fear is self-doubt, that you can't, it's not possible, your limiting belief. Your fear kicks in. The reason why this happens is because we are conditioned through events and abuse in our lives that love equals fear or danger, and it's not safe. When we hear about love, we think romantic love. Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's a lot more primitive than that. We're not even going to look at romantic love. We're just going to look at love in general. What you love. Self-love. At some point in your life, this is really fucking sad, but it's true. At some point in your life, there was an event, maybe even multiple events, that taught you that it was not safe enough to love. Bottom line. You received one very clear message at some point in your life. It was around the time that you gave up on your dreams. Think back to the last time you dreamed. It was around that time. You received an event that hurt you so much, your stupid subconscious mind interpreted the events as one premise. It is not safe enough to love. That is the core of all trauma. It is not safe enough to love. Love equals danger. When there is danger and your safety is threatened, you now have to choose between love or safety. And that is what's wrong with your subconscious mind. Drop mic. We're done. Really, that's it. That is it. In your subconscious mind, you have to choose between love and safety. And your subconscious mind associates, well, it has an agenda. And that agenda is keep the unit safe. Let's go back to identity. Who is pure love? This is why it's your identity versus your subconscious mind. Because the subconscious mind has to choose between safety and love. And when it receives the message that it is not safe enough to love, it looks at identity, mislabels identity as danger, and throws identity away. Now you feel rejected, abandoned, hollow, empty, alone, dead inside. And your entire system starts to go cold, and you dissociate, and depression turns on, and you become completely consumed by fear. Because love has been redefined as danger. Because at some point in your past, there was an event that caused a misleading belief to be entered into your system that communicated one premise. It is not safe enough to love. And now your entire subconscious mind starts going into overdrive, pushing everything you love away, making sure that under no circumstance can you have love. This is the core of all abuse. Now, every now and then, you get someone who's a little different. Borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder is special. Not only are we taught that love is dangerous, not only do we have the premise, safe enough to love, we have a second thesis, a second premise. Anxious anxiety, anxious attachment disorder, disorganized attachment style. These attachment styles are 100% The premise that you feel it's not safe enough to love, and you don't get any safety unless you are loved. You see how this works? We're special. So when you have borderline personality disorder, you also have the abuse inserted into your programming that you're not safe unless love is around you. So unlike everybody else, you are caught in this horrible push-pull yo-yo where your program is, it's not safe enough to love. But you're not safe unless you love. But it's not safe enough to love, but you're not loved unless you're safe. You're not loved, you're not safe unless you love. So people with borderline personality disorder have two premises in their mind, and they contradict each other, which is why they pull and push, pull and push, pull and push. Get away from me. I love you. Please don't leave me. I'm terrible. It's hell. That's disorganized attachment. That is anxious attachment. Anxious attachment is, it's not safe enough to love, and there's nothing I can do to get it back, and you're just going to hold on to it, and you're going to choke the life out of them. And as soon as they come to you, don't love me back. I can love you, but you can't love me. In fact, there was a time where I actually said that to a lot of people. I would go on a date, and my very first thing I would say to them is, here's the rule. You're not allowed to love me. I can love you, but you are not allowed to love me. As soon as you love me, the whole thing's going to blow up. And it did. As soon as somebody loved me, my borderline turned on. Because it wasn't safe enough to love, and I'm not safe unless I love. Avoidance are different. Avoidance have the programming, it's not safe enough to love, period. But they really want to be loved. We all want to be loved. And that's when somebody who's depressed, somebody who's an avoidant, they feel hopeless because they want love, but it isn't safe to love. Narcissists. Narcissists feel it isn't safe enough to love, but they want love. So they decide to get love through control, and then they'll be safe. Because it's not safe enough to love without control. They associate control with safety. So their pursuit for love is, if I can control the situation, then I can have love. Because they want love. We all want love. But it's not safe enough to love. Narcissists are special. They have a loophole. If I control the situation, then I can have love. I've outsmarted the system. So you have narcissists who are manipulating and controlling everybody so they can feel safe enough to love. See how that works? There it is. Once you understand what your motivator emotion is, once you understand where you fall into this lineup, a lot really, you step out of the perspective, you step out of the trap. It's like you're standing in the middle of a cage right now and you don't know it. And then conscious awareness comes on and you realize the door is not even locked. And you step out of the cage and you're like, oh, the door's not even locked. And you get out of the cage. It was one of my favorite moments. Oh my God, I love this episode. Okay, Walking Dead. Here's Not Here. Season 6. I must have watched this episode 40 times. I still watch this episode because this episode was like yummy psychology bits. The first time I watched it, I just went. In the episode, season 6, Here's Not Here. It's when Morgan comes back. It is the PTSD episode of all the material, of all the movies in all the world. This episode of Walking Dead shows you PTSD in its real hardcore truth. You see Morgan, and he is so triggered and he just sees war. And you see the goggles and you see the black shadows around the edges. It really looks like that. That is how people with PTSD see the world. There is a dark shadow. And you just maneuver and you walk and he hears a snap and he turns with his gun or his stick And it's a cripple with a girl. And he still can't see that. He's captured. He's knocked out. He's thrown in a jail cell. Literally, he's in a cell. He wakes up with bars. And he screams and he yells. And there's a man on the other side, a forensic psychologist who worked in a prison nearby. And he says to him, you have PTSD. You're stuck in constant replay, aren't you? You're constantly in flashback mode. And at one point, the psychologist says, it's unlocked. There's no key. You never even looked. And Morgan went, what? And he says, the cell. There's no key. You never even looked. And Morgan pushes on the door and the door swings open. It's a trap. He never even thought. There's also the movie Instinct. Oh, Instinct. Instinct was gorgeous. There's a gorilla inside the cage. And Anthony Hopkins is talking to Cuba Gooding Jr. And he opens the door. And Cuba's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he goes, he opens the door. The gorilla looks up. Looks back down. And Anthony Hopkins says, been in a cage for so long that he doesn't even try to escape. This is perspective. It's a trap. You are the gorilla inside the cage. You are the baby elephant tied to a tree. But the delusion is you're an adult now. But your perspective shows you a child. It's a trap. Conscious awareness. Who you really are is an adult who has learned and grown. Who you really are is somebody who really wants love. We all are. But you don't want romantic love. You think you do. It's a trap. What you really want is identity back. You want self-love. You want you love. Because the moment your subconscious mind threw her away, you felt abandoned and rejected and empty and cold and lonely. When you crave love, you crave you. But you have that belief in your brain. It isn't safe enough to love. So you have to throw out all the love. Oh, I love it when people talk to me about black and white thinking. You want to talk about black and white thinking? Let's talk about that. Safe enough to love is black and white thinking. Oh, I can't have love. I can't have any of the love. Not even self-love. It's dangerous. So really, eliminate that belief. That's really the crux. That's the conversation that everyone needs to have. Is it safe enough to love? I'm actually doing a program that's coming up, another course called Safe Enough to Love. And this is all I'm going to be focusing on, is this premise, showing you that it is safe enough to love. Because if you can get through that core belief, borderline personality goes away, narcissism goes away, it all goes away. Every mental disorder is based off of the premise that it is not safe enough to love. And you think you're still a 5-year-old child. You still think you're an elephant chained to a tree. Conscious awareness is the power of the self. Conscious awareness is the captain of life's ship. The fucking captain. You are the captain, and you're not just any captain. You answer to no one. You don't answer to the government. You own your ship. It's not a job. You are the captain. You own your ship. You are a pirate of the seas, and you answer to no one. but you don't know it. You are sitting in the brig thinking you are 5 years old. So I'm walking down to the brig and I'm looking at you through the bars and I'm going, psst, you know, you're the captain, right? And you know, you're not 5 years old anymore. You know, you're like an adult and you've grown and you've learned. You know, you are supposed to be at the helm running this popsicle stand. And instead you think you're a 5-year-old. So you're curled up in the corner in the brig. The door's not even locked. Perspective. Perspective. It's a trap.